I guess you could say it all started with a phone call. I was standing in the cramped kitchen of my tiny apartment, trying to scrape together a half-decent dinner from whatever sad groceries were left in my fridge when my mom called. At first, it seemed like just another one of her usual breezy check-ins, full of polite questions about my job, my health, whether I was still seeing that nice girl. But there was something different in her voice this time. Something lighter, almost relieved. I should have known right then that something was off. About 10 minutes into the call, she dropped it on me casually, like she was mentioning the weather. "Oh, by the way," she said, "your father and I decided to give your inheritance to Jason instead. It just made more sense." For a second, I didn't even register what she had said. I just stood there, the refrigerator door hanging open, cold air pooling at my feet, feeling like the world had tilted sideways. "Wait, what?" I managed to choke out. She laughed a tight, awkward laugh I knew too well and said, "Don't be dramatic, you're doing fine, you don't really need it like Jason does." "Jason? My cousin Jason." The golden boy, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, no matter how many times he screwed up. The one who dropped out of college, floated from job to job, racked up debt like it was a hobby, and still somehow got fawned over at every family gathering. Meanwhile, I had done everything right. Graduated college, paid my own bills, worked 2 jobs to stay afloat, never asked for a dime. And yet here I was being told that the money my grandparents had left for my future, the money my parents had promised would one day help me buy a house or start a business, was now in Jason's hands. Because it made more sense. I don't even remember how the rest of the call ended. I think I mumbled something about needing to go. Maybe I hung up, maybe she did. All I know is that one minute I was standing in my kitchen trying to figure out what to cook for dinner, and the next I was sitting on the floor, staring blankly at the wall, feeling like someone had punched a hole through my chest. The betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was about what it meant. It meant that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how good I tried to be, I would never be enough for them. Jason could crash and burn 100 times, and they'd still be there, shoveling money and praise onto him like it was his birthright. But me, I was just the afterthought. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw anything. I just sat there in the dark kitchen, the cold from the fridge creeping up my legs, feeling the sharp, bitter taste of something new settle in my mouth. Resolve. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. If they thought I was going to roll over and accept this, to keep showing up to family dinners, smiling and nodding while they patted Jason on the back with my future tucked in his pocket, they had another thing coming. No, they were about to get a taste of their own medicine. And when I was done, they'd finally understand exactly what it felt like to be cast aside. To be treated like nothing more than an inconvenience. It wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be messy. It would be surgical, precise, inevitable, and it would start sooner than they ever expected. After that night, I couldn't think about anything else. I went to work, nodded through meetings, smiled at customers, but it was all surface level. Inside, I was a storm. I wasn't stupid. I knew I couldn't just stomp into my parents' house and demand the money back. I knew yelling or guilt-tripping them would only make me look childish, exactly how they probably already saw me. If I wanted to hit them where it hurt, I needed to be smarter. I needed a plan that would make them feel the same helplessness, the same betrayal, that they had shoved onto me without a second thought. For the first few days, I stewed. I thought about going scorched earth, posting everything online, telling every distant relative what they had done, shamming them into embarrassment. But that wasn't enough. Embarrassment fades. I wanted them to feel it. Deep, personal, permanent. One night, lying awake in my bed staring at the cracks in the ceiling, the idea clicked into place so cleanly it almost scared me. If they could so easily give away what was supposed to be mine, then I could so easily walk away from them. Not just physically. Not just skipping a few family gatherings or sending cold texts. I was going to pull the rug out from under everything they quietly relied on me for, all the small things they had grown used to without ever noticing. See, even though they didn't value me, they still used me. I was the one who fixed their computers when they froze. The one who helped set up their online bill payments because technology is confusing. The one who drove them to doctor's appointments when Jason couldn't make it. The one who remembered birthdays, who brought casseroles after surgeries, who sat through boring weekends helping them paint fences or clean out gutters. All the things Jason never did. All the things they took for granted. I realized something: they needed me far more than I needed them. And it was time they learned what it felt like when I wasn't there. The next morning I started phase 1, pulling back. It was subtle at first. I stopped responding to texts within minutes like I usually did. I stopped volunteering to help around the house. When my dad's laptop glitched, I suggested he call a repair shop. "Oh, it's probably just something simple," he said, chuckling like he always did, holding it out to me. "Yeah, maybe," I said, stepping back, "but I'm really busy lately. You should have someone look at it professionally." The confusion in his eyes was almost funny. Like it had never even occurred to him that I might say no. Next came phase 2, setting boundaries. I started saying no to invitations. No to last-minute favors. No to the quiet, invisible obligations they piled on me every time they needed something: a ride, a call to the cable company, a grocery pickup. Every no was a tiny dagger. Not thrown in anger, just calmly placed over and over until the message became impossible to ignore. And the beauty of it was, there wasn't anything they could complain about. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't throwing tantrums. I was just busy, unavailable, prioritizing myself for once. At first, they tried to guilt me. "Family sticks together," my mom said one afternoon, her voice dripping with disappointment after I declined to drive them to Jason's new apartment warming party. I smiled politely and said, "Exactly, family should stick together." And left it at that. The look she gave me, confusion turning to something close to fear, fed a tiny flame in my chest that kept growing hotter. It didn't take long for cracks to form. Jason, of course, was useless. When they asked him for help, he always had an excuse. Too tired. Too busy. Forgot. They started to realize how much they had leaned on me without even appreciating it. Little problems started stacking up for them. Bills went unpaid because they couldn't figure out online banking. Their car registration expired because no one reminded them. Doctor's appointments were missed. Every tiny inconvenience was a stone in their shoes. Not enough to ruin their lives overnight, but enough to make every day just a little bit harder. And every time they felt that sting, that quiet frustration, I wanted them to think about me. About what they had thrown away so easily. This was just the beginning. The groundwork was laid. Next, it would be time for the final phase. The part that would make sure they never forgot. Not for a week. Not for a month. Forever. After a few weeks of quiet withdrawal, the cracks in the foundation were no longer just cracks, they were starting to split wide open. I could see it every time I spoke to my parents, or rather, every time I let them chase me down for a conversation. Their voices were more strained, their patience thinner. They started mentioning Jason less and less, as if even they couldn't keep pretending everything was perfect on his end. It was working. But as satisfying as it was to watch them squirm under the weight of their own choices, I knew I couldn't stop there. Not if I wanted this lesson to stick. Not if I wanted them to truly feel the consequences the way I had felt them when they handed over my future like it was nothing. That's when I realized it wasn't enough for them to miss my help. They needed to see what it was like to be replaced. Just like they had replaced me with Jason. The idea formed slowly at first, like a flickering light bulb. Then, once it took shape, it was so perfect I wondered how I hadn't thought of it sooner. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to show them exactly what it felt like to be discarded. Phase 3 began with me reaching out to an old family friend, Mrs. Thompson. She was in her 70s, spry but starting to struggle with some of the basic tasks of living alone: grocery shopping, managing appointments, simple tech stuff. She wasn't family by blood, but she had always treated me better than my parents ever did, kind, patient, always offering a warm hug and a plate of cookies every time I visited growing up. I told her I had more free time these days, and if she ever needed help with anything, I was happy to lend a hand. She teared up right there on the spot. Said she had been praying for someone to come along and help. It didn't take long for my weekends, the ones my parents used to fill with errands and demands, to get booked solid helping Mrs. Thompson. Setting up her new phone. Driving her to doctor's appointments. Fixing her leaky sink. Even just sitting with her over coffee, listening to her talk about the good old days when people actually cared about one another. It felt good. It felt right. And slowly, through the small-town gossip grapevine that my parents loved to pretend they didn't care about, word got back to them. First, it was a comment my mom made during one of her rare phone calls. "I heard you've been spending a lot of time with Mrs. Thompson." Her voice was careful, measured, like she was trying not to sound jealous. I smiled to myself and said, "Yeah, she needed someone, I figured why not." A long pause. "Well, that's nice of you." I could almost hear the bitterness clinging to the word nice. The next time we spoke, which was weeks later, my dad made a snide remark. "Guess we know who you're saving all your free time for these days." I didn't rise to the bait. I just laughed lightly and said, "I go where I'm appreciated." Another silence. Another crack deepening. It wasn't just that they missed me now. It was that they knew someone else was getting the care, the effort, the loyalty they had so carelessly thrown away. They were experiencing exactly what they had made me feel, replaced, unimportant, invisible. And I wasn't even doing it to hurt them. I was just living. Choosing to give my energy to people who valued it instead of wasting it on those who didn't. It was beautiful. It was brutal. It was exactly what they deserved. And best of all, there was still one more part of the plan left. A final twist that would turn the knife just a little deeper. Because while they were busy realizing how much they had lost, they hadn't even begun to imagine just how far I was willing to go to make sure they never forgot. It wasn't just about replacing them in my life anymore. It was about closing the chapter properly, making it clear without a shred of doubt that things would never go back to how they were. I realized the perfect opportunity had been sitting right in front of me the whole time. My birthday was coming up. For years, it had been the same routine. Family dinner at my parents' house, cake from the grocery store, half-hearted small talk around the table while Jason soaked up all the attention. Every year, it chipped away at me a little more, the way they treated me like an obligation instead of someone they loved. This year, I decided things would be different. I didn't tell them my plans. Didn't remind them the date was coming up. Didn't drop hints about getting together. I just let the silence hang there. Instead, I spent the entire day with Mrs. Thompson. She surprised me with a homemade cake, carrot, my favorite, and a small, carefully wrapped book she said reminded her of me, The Strength to Stand Alone. We sat in her backyard under the big oak tree, eating cake off paper plates, laughing about all the times we'd had to explain basic technology to people twice our age. And for the first time in years, I felt happy on my birthday. Not tolerated. Not pitied. Celebrated. It wasn't until the evening that my phone started blowing up. First a missed call from Mom. Then Dad. Then a group text, "Happy birthday, sorry we didn't plan anything this year, thought you might be busy." Busy. As if they hadn't spent decades making it clear I was never busy enough for them when they needed something. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the messages fully. I just smiled, set my phone down on the picnic table, and went back to listening to Mrs. Thompson tell stories about growing up without cell phones or Google. The next day, the real fireworks started. Mom showed up at my apartment without warning, knocking so hard it rattled the frame. I almost didn't answer. Almost let her stand there and stew in the consequences of her choices. But some part of me, the part that craved finality, needed to hear what she had to say. I opened the door, leaned casually against the frame, and waited. She looked rough. Hair unbrushed, dark circles under her eyes. Holding a Tupperware container with what I assumed was some kind of peace-offering casserole. "We need to talk," she said. I didn't invite her in. I just raised an eyebrow. She launched right into it. Accused me of being ungrateful. Of punishing them over something that was already done and couldn't be changed. Of trying to make them feel guilty by spending time with Mrs. Thompson instead of real family. I didn't shout. Didn't argue. I just stood there calm and steady while she unraveled. When she finally stopped, breathing hard, face flushed, I spoke, my voice low and even. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm just living my life the way you taught me." She frowned, confused. "You showed me exactly what family means to you when you gave away what was supposed to be mine. You made a choice. I'm just making mine." She tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm just done." The silence between us was heavier than anything words could carry. She set the casserole down awkwardly on the porch, like a peace treaty she knew I wouldn't accept. I closed the door gently but firmly in her face. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the bad guy. I felt free. They thought they could take from me without consequences. They thought loyalty was something they could cash in whenever it suited them, no matter how many times they spit in my face. They were wrong. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I wasn't their fallback plan. I wasn't their backup son. I was done. And there was no coming back. It's funny, in a cruel sort of way, how quickly the people who always acted like they didn't need you start to stumble the second you stop holding them up. The weeks after that final conversation were strangely peaceful for me. No desperate texts. No guilt-tripping voicemails. No last-minute "can you come fix this" calls. Just a silence. At first, I thought maybe they had finally accepted it. That they had moved on. That they were content letting Jason, their shining star, take the wheel for once. But life has a funny way of exposing the truth when you least expect it. It started small. A friend of the family bumped into me at the grocery store, all sympathy and whispered gossip. "Your poor parents," she said, shaking her head. "They're having such a rough time lately. Your dad been missing important bill payments. Their internet got shut off for a few days. They had to pay a fortune in late fees." I just smiled politely and nodded, pretending to be surprised. Inside, I felt something deep and sharp twist in my chest, not guilt, not sadness. Justice. They had built their lives assuming someone would always be there to clean up the messes. Patch the holes. Smooth over the cracks. But the someone they counted on wasn't there anymore. And Jason. Jason was a disaster. Apparently, after the gift of my inheritance, he had decided he didn't need to hold back anymore. He rented an expensive apartment he couldn't really afford, blew through cash like it was Monopoly money, and shocker, quit another job after just 3 months. Without me around to quietly step in, cover gaps, offer solutions, their world started fraying at the edges. Another neighbor casually mentioned how the family car, the one I used to schedule maintenance for, bring to the shop, keep running, had broken down. They missed a cousin's wedding because they couldn't figure out how to rent a car online in time. One by one, all the little conveniences they had taken for granted slipped through their fingers. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some soap opera explosion. It was slow, silent, inevitable, exactly the way I had planned it. Meanwhile, my life was flourishing. Helping Mrs. Thompson had opened unexpected doors. She introduced me to friends who needed help managing their homes, their technology, their endless little life problems. Before long, I had a comfortable side business built on nothing but kindness, reliability, and word of mouth. No corporate ladder. No fake smiles. No invisible loyalty tests I could never pass. Just people who appreciated what I brought to the table without expecting me to bleed for it. Every once in a while, when I was driving across town or sitting quietly with a coffee in hand, a wave of bitterness would try to creep back in. The memory of what my parents had done, what they had chosen, would flicker in the back of my mind. But then I'd breathe in deep, let it out slow, and remind myself. I didn't walk away because I was weak. I walked away because I finally realized my own worth. Something they had spent my whole life trying to make me forget. The funniest part. The inheritance, the big dramatic prize they dangled over my head like a carrot for years, didn't even matter anymore. Money comes and goes. Freedom, self-respect, peace. That's priceless. I wasn't trapped anymore, playing the good child in a rigged game. I wasn't chasing approval like a dog chasing a parked car. I had built a life with my own 2 hands on my own terms. No handouts. No fake promises. No strings. And as far as I was concerned, that was the greatest revenge of all. It was a Sunday afternoon when it happened. The kind of day that used to mean family lunches, awkward small talk, and pretending everything was fine. Now it was just another day, peaceful, quiet mine. I was helping Mrs. Thompson rearrange her living room when my phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times, all from my mom. At first, I considered ignoring it. Part of me thought, let them sit in the bed they made. But something gnawed at the edge of my mind, curiosity, maybe, and I wiped my hands on my jeans, picked up the phone, and answered. Her voice was small. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. Can you come over, she said, almost whispering. Please, we need to talk. Need. Not want. Need. There was a difference. I thought about it for a minute, long enough to feel the weight of the decision settle in my chest, and then I agreed. Not for them, for me. I needed to see it. I needed to see the fallout up close. When I pulled up to their house, it was like stepping into a time capsule, the same faded welcome mat, the same half-dead flower pots by the door, but the air felt heavier. Thicker. I knocked once out of habit. My dad opened the door, and the sight of him nearly knocked the breath out of me. He looked old. Not just older, but aged, like someone had drained the life out of him in a matter of months. There were deep lines etched into his face, a slouch in his shoulders I had never seen before. Come in, he said, voice raspy. I stepped inside, and my mom was sitting on the couch, wringing her hands like she was trying to squeeze water from them. They didn't offer me coffee. Didn't pretend this was a social call. Good. I stayed standing while they stumbled through it. They talked about how hard things had been. How Jason had disappointed them again. How he was asking for more money again, and how they were starting to realize he wasn't the investment they thought he would be. I didn't say a word. I let them talk themselves into circles, digging their own graves with every excuse, every half-baked apology. Finally, my mom looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. We made a mistake, she said. We thought we were helping Jason, but we hurt you. We see that now. I waited. There was more. There's always more when people are desperate. We want you back, she said. Not just for chores or help, my dad added quickly, seeing the skepticism on my face. We miss you. Those words, so simple, so desperate, should have broken me. A year ago, they would have. But now they just sounded hollow. Because they didn't miss me. They missed the version of me that gave endlessly without asking for anything back. They missed the convenience, the security blanket. I crossed my arms, let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then I spoke, my voice low and calm. You don't miss me, I said. You miss what I did for you. You miss what you lost because you didn't think you'd ever actually lose it. My mom started to cry, real, messy sobs that shook her shoulders. My dad just stared at the floor, defeated. It should have made me feel powerful. It should have been satisfying. Instead, it just felt necessary. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't looking for revenge. I had already won. I stayed for another few minutes out of courtesy, out of closure, then stood up to leave. "We can't change the past," I said. "And I'm not angry. But I've built a life without you in it. And I'm not giving that up." Their faces crumpled like paper, but I didn't hesitate. I walked out the door, down the cracked steps, into the clean, bright afternoon. And this time, I didn't look back. It's strange how, when something finally ends, the world doesn't make a big show of it. There's no fireworks, no applause, no final, dramatic crash of the curtain. One moment you're in the middle of it, the anger, the pain, the grief, and the next you realize, it's over. You survived it. You're still standing. The weeks after that final meeting with my parents were some of the quietest of my life. And for the first time, the quiet didn't scare me. It felt clean, fresh, like the air after a thunderstorm, still heavy, but somehow full of possibility. There were moments where the old reflexes kicked in, of course. Moments when I picked up my phone and instinctively thought about checking in. Moments when I wondered if I was being too harsh, too cold. But every time I reminded myself, I wasn't being cruel. I was finally giving myself the love and protection I had spent my whole life giving to people who didn't deserve it. And the funny thing, without the constant emotional weight of my parents, my world expanded in ways I hadn't even realized were possible. My side business grew faster than I could have dreamed. New clients came by word of mouth, referrals from people who valued honesty, reliability, and kindness, the very things my parents had treated like inconveniences. I moved into a better apartment. Started traveling a little, small trips at first, weekend getaways, but enough to breathe new air, see new skis. Enough to remember that there was a whole world out there, bigger than the cage they had tried to keep me in. I built friendships that weren't one-sided. People who didn't see me as a utility, but as a human being, flaws and all. I even found myself, one lazy Sunday afternoon, thinking seriously about something I hadn't dared dream about in years. Starting my own company full-time. Turning the side hustle into the main event. Taking the final step into a life that was mine, no handouts, no strings attached. And through it all, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a kid. Pride. Not the loud, bragging kind. The quiet kind. The kind that hums in your bones when you know, deep down, without needing anyone else to say it, that you fought for yourself. And you won. As for my parents, we didn't speak much anymore. Every now and then there would be a birthday card in the mail or a short, stilted message on holidays. I didn't hate them. I didn't need to. They were simply part of the past now. I knew they were still struggling, still trying to patch holes with Jason, still scrambling to fix problems they had spent years ignoring. And a small, human part of me wished they had learned something deeper from it all. But another part, the stronger part, knew it didn't really matter. I hadn't gone through all of this for them. I had gone through it for me. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not screaming. Not fighting. Just thriving. Just living a life so full, so rich, so completely yours that the people who once tried to control you become irrelevant. I sat on my new balcony one night, a glass of wine in one hand, the city lights stretching out below me, and thought about how different everything looked now. How for so long I thought my parents' approval was the key to my future. How for so long I thought losing their love would destroy me. But it didn't. It fried me. They didn't hand me my future. They didn't build it for me. They didn't even help. I built it myself, one brick, one scar, one hard-won victory at a time. And it was beautiful. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine.